Welcome to The Explainer. All right, we are diving right into this intensive masterclass today. If you're a CELPIP candidate and you're aiming for that highly coveted CLB 9 or higher, you are exactly in the right place. Today, we're not just memorizing a boring vocabulary list. We're actually decoding the Canadian cultural context. We've got 15 mandatory high-stakes words pulled directly from official CELPIP materials, and these are going to give you the precise language you need to absolutely secure that top score.
Here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll be covering 4 main pillars. Number 1, politics and government. 2, social issues and the public. 3, economy and industry. And finally, 4, culture, media, and cognition. Let's get to it.
Kicking things off with Section 1, Politics and Government, the macro structure.
Let's look at our first term. Conservative. Conservative. 形容词或名词，保守的保守派. So notice the Canadian habit of using this word. When it's capitalized, it refers to the Conservative Party of Canada, which typically argues for limiting government spending and lowering taxes. In the CELPIP reading section, especially those tricky policy debates, you'll absolutely see sentences like, someone with more conservative views might believe in limiting government spending. So pay super close attention to collocations like conservative views and conservative estimate. That is exactly how you nail those reading comprehension questions.
Now we can directly contrast that with our next word, liberal. Liberal. 形容词 or 名词，自由的、开明的、自由派. The current ruling party in Canada right now is the Liberal Party, and their platform typically focuses on increasing social welfare and fulfilling basic needs. When you're tackling reading tasks about progressive policies, you really want to look out for collocations like liberal views. The test explicitly uses contexts like, someone with more liberal views might think that the government should take care of certain basic needs. Moving to the absolute core of public funds, government. Government, 名词，政府. This is the ultimate decision maker, right? Understanding this brilliantly illustrates your core strategy for writing task 2. When you're dealing with a debate about, say, whether to raise taxes to build a park or maybe subsidize housing, government has to be your go-to grammatical subject. Memorize collocations like federal government and local government. You want to confidently write sentences like, I strongly believe that the local government should invest more in public transportation.
And what exactly drives that government? Elections. Elections. 名词选举. This pairs perfectly with collocations like hold elections and federal elections. Remember, Canada is a democracy that deeply values voting rights. The crucial strategy point here for you is that Canadian municipal elections frequently form the exact background for your speaking and writing community scenarios. The test will remind you that Canadians choose their representatives in elections, which are typically held every 4 years, and this heavily drives massive community building efforts.
All right, moving right along to Section 2, Social Issues and the Public, Community Realities.
Diving into our first major social issue, poverty. Poverty, 名词，贫困，贫穷. This one is absolutely vital. You must use collocations like child poverty and reduce poverty. In major Canadian cities, low-income situations and homelessness are severe social issues. If you want to build really powerful arguments about welfare in writing task 2, this is your word. The exam texts often point out that poverty is an increasingly important issue, and the impoverished frequently just do not get the support they need.
Now, this reality often intersects with immigration. Immigration. 民籍, 移民, 移住. Guys, this is the absolute core foundation of Canada, and frankly, it's the most central theme of the entire CELPIP exam. Definitely use collocations like immigration policy and high levels of immigration. Lots of listening and reading tasks revolve entirely around how new immigrants integrate into the community or the local workplace. The test explicitly states over and over that Canada is a country with very high levels of immigration from all over the world.
So, when citizens demand change, you get an activist. Activist, 难词，激进主义分子，活动家. This word is essential for those advanced reading passages. Canadians are very active in social protests. A classic high-difficulty reading topic on the CELPIP is pipeline construction. You'll absolutely read about the environmental activist or the human rights activist who organizes protests because they're unhappy with a federal decision to build a pipeline.
At the heart of all of this is the public. Public. Noun, public. Adjective, public. 公开的,公共的. This word is just completely foundational across all sections of the test. Think of collocations like the general public and public transit. But more importantly, the concept of publicly funded systems, like universal healthcare, is deeply ingrained in Canada.
The test often explores themes where journalists or regular citizens argue that more information must be made available to the public simply because people have an inherent right to know.
And a major pillar of public funding is education. Education. Noun, education. This pairs seamlessly with phrases like public education system and higher education. I want you to treat this word as a universal, highly flexible argument for resource allocation in writing task 2. When you're faced with a tricky debate on, whether to fund hospitals or fix roads, arguing instead for a strong public education system is incredibly effective. Many Canadians feel that it's absolutely vital in preparing children for the future.
Let's jump to Section 3, Economy and Industry, the financial backbone. First up in this section is economy. Economy. Nouns, economics, economic body. This is your universal pro-argument for literally any development project. I want you to explicitly memorize the phrase, boost the local economy. Whether the writing prompt is about building a new shopping mall, opening a factory, or even hosting the Olympics, stating that it will boost the economy instantly scores you lexical resource points. The test will frequently describe situations where the economy is doing well, which means more people have jobs and can easily afford everyday goods.
So, what exactly fuels that economy? Industry. Industry. 名词, 工业, 产业, 行业. Notice the high-frequency collocations here, logging industry and tourism industry. Canada relies heavily on its vast natural resources, so anticipate seeing complex topics on the logging industry, as well as oil and gas, in the hardest, longest-reading sections of Part 4. Understanding that these are critical sources of wealth in Canada is going to provide massive context for those really tough passages.
A major factor impacting these industries right now is inflation. Inflation, 房价, 通货膨胀. This is essential advanced vocabulary for social commentary. You'll want to use collocations like high inflation rate and combat inflation. This perfectly explains the surging cost of living in Canada right now. If you want to impress the examiner when explaining why everyday things like movies, rent, or groceries are becoming way more expensive, point directly to inflation.
Okay, bringing us to our final pillar. Section 4, Culture, Media, and Cognition, the social fabric. We're starting this final category with culture. Culture, nuances, 文化. This pairs effortlessly with Canadian culture and the adjective multicultural. Now listen, this is a core societal theme across the entire test. You really need to understand the crucial distinction of Canada's multiculturalism policy. Unlike the American melting pot concept, Canadian culture actively encourages people to celebrate and maintain their own unique, distinct heritage while simultaneously integrating into society. A concept you absolutely must know is bias. Bias, 名词, 偏见, 成见. In Canadian workplaces, overcoming prejudice is a huge part of compliance training. But let me break the fourth wall for a second here and give you a massive test strategy. In reading Part 4, there is a very common trap question that explicitly asks, what is the author's bias? Understanding that everyone has some kind of personal bias or unconscious bias that makes them interpret information a certain way, that is the exact key to unlocking that specific question type.
Finally, we have broadcast. Broadcast, 动词或名词, 广播, 播送. Remember collocations like live broadcast and news broadcast. In Canada, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, or CBC, is the national public broadcaster, functioning a lot like the BBC in the UK. Many of the CELPIP listening tracks are styled directly after CBC news broadcasts or investigative documentaries. Knowing this context immediately prepares you for the format, the tone, and the pacing of those audio clips.
So we have systematically decoded the political, social, economic, and cultural vocabulary that the examiners are desperately looking for. We've officially covered all 15 mandatory terms. The question now is, which of these 15 words will secure your CLB 9+ today? I challenge you to take these exact words, their collocations, and this deep Canadian context, and immediately apply them to your very next practice test. Keep practicing, stay focused, and we'll see you on the next explainer.